So, but a great innovator that we're going to be hearing from right now is Allie Kelly. Allie Kelly is the executive director of the RAY, the with a capital T and Ray with a capital R, R-A-Y. In that role, she leads the nonprofit organization that has built the nation's only publicly accessible living laboratory for transportation innovation. This is very exciting. Can't wait to hear about it. And Allie was recruited to lead as its first executive director of the RAY back in 2015. In 3 years, she has helped the organization to implement and build almost a dozen groundbreaking, world-leading technology demonstrations. Talk about innovation to practice, right? This is so. We'll look forward to hear how Allie pulled that off, and including what she built is the first solar road in the United States, and the world's first public demonstration of a drive-through tire safety station. Think about it. You drive through and find out if your tire is gonna have some problems. She was the recipient of the 2018 Atlanta Technology Professionals Impact Award and was listed as one of the 100 women by Engineering Georgia, both in 2018 and 2019. Please help me welcome Allie Kelly.
Thank you, Habib. And thank you to Dale and to Jim for making it possible for me to be here with y'all this morning. I'm so excited to share with you information about the RAY. Also, you know, Dale and Jim suggested that I bring the family ahead of the conference and that we spend some time in Maine. I have 2 9-year-old boys and they have torn your state to shreds. So sorry about that. We have had an amazing time. And wow, you know, I'm an Atlanta native and I have started to think about how I can get up to Maine. It's beautiful. And wow. I mean that sincerely from my heart. Your commitment to stewarding the natural resources in your state is unparalleled. The ability to really engage young people in the natural resources. We have done everything here. We have ridden bikes, we have hiked, we have talked about species of bugs, and we've seen amazing warblers, and I'm going to stop now, but I just want you to know that the last few days in Maine have been amazing. Commissioner Sheehan, we did drive through New Hampshire after we landed in Boston, and that was amazing as well. But I want to keep bringing it back to Maine. So hopefully you will follow me as we circle back to Maine throughout my remarks this morning. But I just wanted to start with gratitude. So thankful to be here. I'm honored to be in your presence. Transportation leaders, past, present, and future. Thank you for including me in your ranks today. And thank you for giving me some time and some patience to hear about what we're doing down at the RAY. So let's start with what the RAY refers to and how we got here. The RAY refers to Ray Anderson, who was the CEO and founder of a little carpet company in LaGrange, Georgia in the 1970s. In fact, Ray was the first to introduce carpet tiles to the United States. So we have carpet tile here in this room. And essentially what happened in the 1980s is everything got big hair, big shoulder pads, and skyscrapers. And when the corporate offices of the United States moved into skyscrapers, we started to employ and deploy modular office designs, which meant that the wiring that was in the ceiling had to move to the flooring in order to accommodate a modular and flexible office design with cubicles. There was one company positioned to supply the market with carpet tile, Ray having started the company in the late 1970s. And so in less than 20 years, Ray Anderson grew a small business in LaGrange, Georgia, into the world's leading design, producer, and distributor of carpet tile, a company worth over $1 billion. So this is one of, I guess, the United States' first unicorns. In the 1990s, So now think Clinton era, big balloon drop, Fleetwood Mac, right? 1994, Ray Anderson begins his second career, still the head of CEO, still the head and CEO of Interface Carpet Company. But he announced publicly in 94 that Interface was going zero carbon in 1994, zero waste to landfill, renewable energy, wastewater reuse. And he set the goal of zero to be achieved by 2020. And that is really what defines Ray Anderson today, and his legacy is not the CEO and founder of $1 billion global business, but the pioneer of corporate sustainability and the pioneer of the circular economy. He was the first to go circular. He took a linear business, taking petroleum products to make carpet that went into the landfill after their useful life of 10 or 20 years, where carpet does not biodegrade for a couple hundred years. So he took that linear business and he started to make new carpet out of old carpet. He started to make new carpet out of carpet shreds. And as a result of his work, many other companies followed. That's number one. Why did companies follow in Ray Anderson's footsteps? Because not only did he set the goal and commit to achieving the goal, but he documented the economic impact to his company of the innovations that he introduced in order to get to zero. And all told, he documented almost $450 million worth of savings as a result of his road to zero. So for $1 billion business to document efficiencies and savings of nearly half of the worth of the company was instrumental in convincing businesses like Walmart, Unilever, Coca-Cola to come along with them. And so for any of you who might know a corporate sustainability officer, a CSO, now common in corporate C-suites, as we start reporting to the SEC on greenhouse gas emissions, the original CSO was Ray Anderson, Georgia Tech graduate engineer, son of a postal worker, born in West Point, Georgia, today population 8,000, started Interface in LaGrange, population 35,000, and one of the favored sons of the state of Georgia. So I still haven't told you how we get to the Ray. I've just told you about the name. So how we get to the Ray is when Ray Anderson passed away in 2011, our former governor, Nathan Deal, designated an 18-mile stretch of Interstate 85. That 18-mile stretch of the interstate that connected his birthplace in West Point to the birthplace of Interface in LaGrange, Georgia. And that 18-mile stretch of Interstate 85 is formally known as the Ray C. Anderson Memorial Highway. But most people now know of it as the Ray. And what we have done as a 501c3, so I want to emphasize that, and I can't emphasize it enough, we're a charity, we're a nonprofit organization. It's a joke, not a funny joke, not a good joke, but a joke. You know, I'm with government and I'm here to help, and everyone says, ha ha. Well, I'm with philanthropy and I'm here to help. And that's our way of doing business at the Ray. As philanthropy, as charity, we facilitate projects with DOTs that are difficult, that are innovative and new, that come with risk. Commissioner Sheehan said yesterday, what are her 3 biggest challenges in incorporating and integrating innovation into the system and normalizing it in the system? The 3 challenges: fear of failure, lack of confidence, lack of funding. And that's what we try to provide through the nonprofit, the Ray. We try to provide some funding, we try to provide some confidence, and we try to de-risk these innovative projects. But we had to do it somewhere first. And so the first is the 18-mile corridor. As Habib said, more than a dozen projects over the last 7 years now, working with Georgia DOT and the Federal Highways Administration. And we executed a formal charter with both organizations in 2019, and we now have a joint strategic plan. So I survived strategic planning with Federal Highways and GDOT, and I live to tell about it. It's been an amazing ride. You know, our first project was in 2015. I'll show you a picture of it in a minute. It's a very modest solar powered EV charging station. That was August of 2015, the first project. The next year in 2016, we did the Wheelwright Tire Safety Station from the UK and the France-based Wattway Solar Road. Those were both in December of 2016. And from that point, we have built connected and autonomous vehicle infrastructure systems with Georgia DOT that rival every other state in the country. We're really building the best connected and autonomous vehicle systems, both digital and physical infrastructure, than any other state in the country. We've also incorporated rubber modified asphalt, which I'm going to talk about a little bit today because I think that it aligns well with the work that Habib is doing with resilient and sustainable materials. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then I think earlier Habib mentioned the solar road. So solar panels and a pilot on the road surface, that's kind of far out, right? That's the ray going on the knife's edge. Is it ready for prime time? Is it really worth scaling? Is it worth the investment at this point? Maybe not, but I tell you what is worth the investment, which is solar on the roadsides. And in each of these areas that I'm singling out for you in this overview, rubber modified asphalt, solar on the roadsides, energy corridors identified on interstate and state highway routes, Maine leads in all of those areas. And I'm going to show you how, and then I'm going to try to help you think about what might be next. But you can see this is the overview of the 18-mile corridor. I'm happy to go into any detail on these projects during the Q&A period when we move into the panel discussion on innovation. But so this is where we've grown to now. The Ray works with almost 36 transportation organizations in 25 states. That number's always changing. In some states, we work with multiple agencies. So I'll single out Texas for a minute. We have paperwork, which this is an old map. Texas should be colored all in blue. We've got, I think, a charter with Texas DOT. We also have a paper agreement with the city of Austin. We have another paper agreement with the Central Texas Regional Mobility Authority. We almost have a contract signed with DFW Airport. Yes, we work with airports too. A lot of what we're doing on an 18-mile rural stretch of interstate actually has relevance across the board. It has relevance for urban areas with city governments and county governments, and it also has relevance in the aviation space as well. I don't have a whole lot of time today, but I would love to go state by state and tell you what we're doing in each state. I'm going to summarize it like this. So we're the 400-item Chinese buffet, and you come in and you tell us if you want blue Jello, red Jello, or green Jello, and we do whatever we can do to make it happen. We're going to meet you where you have your challenges. We're going to meet you where you want to capture opportunities, and we're going to try to de-risk the process and add some funding to help facilitate to projects. I live on projects. I don't live on theory. I love research, but I really want to do projects. And why do we want to do projects? We want to do projects because our whole goal is not to glam up an 18-mile stretch of interstate to try to honor the legacy of Ray Anderson. Our whole goal is to use an 18-mile stretch of interstate to catapult innovation to all 50 states. And the why is because we want to show that net zero transportation is possible today. The technologies exist. We just have to pick up the tools that are already in the toolbox. And the goal is zero deaths, zero waste, and zero carbon in transportation. We just have to figure out how to get the confidence, the funding, and how to de-risk these projects and how to help each other move fast enough so that we can actually have an impact on the negative outcomes that transportation continues to produce. What are the negative outcomes? Transportation's the leading sector contributing to greenhouse gases in the United States. IPCC says that we have this decade to mitigate. If you're adapting, you're doing the wrong thing this decade. It's not that adaptation is wrong, it's that mitigation is key for the next 8 years. So we have got to drive down transportation carbon in this decade to have an impact on keeping the Earth's temperature at or below 1.5 C. That's the imperative, right? It's super clear. The world scientists have all agreed. We need to mitigate, and mitigation of greenhouse gases necessarily means we have to drive down transportation carbon. That's number one. Number two, 13-year high for transportation fatalities. Those are the latest numbers from NHTSA. We're at a 13-year high. We have the highest, most sophisticated ADAS that we've ever had in our vehicles, right? We have connected vehicle systems that are being deployed across the country. What is going on? We're so missing the mark on Vision Zero. We're not keeping families safe and keeping them whole at home at the end of the day. And so these are the things that motivate us, right? We've got to do these things. We have to do them faster. We've got to figure out how to do them together. Public-private partnerships are key. I'm adding philanthropy, which is the fourth P. How can philanthropy facilitate public-private partnerships? And how does P4 move the needle? I'm not going to go through all these in detail because I think by my watch, I have 7 minutes left. So strap in, make sure you wear your seatbelt, it's required. You know, I've talked a little bit about rubber modified asphalt. We created one single inventory of the beneficial aspects of using RMA, and I'm going to throw a slide up in a minute to show you a summary of what we found. Right-of-way solar, right-of-way transmission, I'm going to touch on those with individual slides. You know, everyone's talking about EV charging. The NEVI plans were just returned to the Federal Highway Administration, but, you know, how do we avoid building bridges to nowhere? Y'all are going to talk about bridges a lot today, but I remember that Alaskan bridge. And we don't want to build EV charging stations that never get used. That doesn't move electrification forward. It doesn't portend, it doesn't bode well for the investment for us to make large investments, like $1 million per charging station is what the feds are saying. We don't want to invest $1 million per charging station only to see zero utilization over the next 5 years. So we're doing that work with Geotab, mapping the truck travel trends of today in order to know where we should put high-powered charging and where we should put hydrogen refueling stations tomorrow. You got to know where the utilization is today, and then you got to put the equipment, put the technology in the way of utilization. And then I mentioned briefly our connected freight work in Georgia with the DOT, Panasonic. We've got OEM partners that those OEM partners are growing even today, but really trying to flex on the promise of the safety spectrum using DSRC as well as cellular V2X to get information from vehicles into the cloud and crowdsourcing that information into real-time, real-place alerts back into vehicles, also making freight more efficient with freight signal priority, allowing platooning. The state laws in Georgia allow for level 5 autonomy without a driver, without a steering wheel. Today, all you have to do is talk to Betty at the DMV, let her know the name of your company and show proof of limo insurance. That's what we're doing in Georgia, just so you know next time you come. Also, we allowed platooning in 2016. These are laws that were passed almost 10 years ago. So we're open for business. We're also open for autonomy at the highest levels. And the connected vehicle systems are meant to support the safe operation of all of those advanced mobility modes. So let me just dive right into the right of way. Federal Highways about a year ago issued a memo. This is April of 2021. For the first time, they created a new class of projects for the roadsides that are as priority as the transportation use. Clean energy and connectivity projects are at the same import, the same level of importance as adding another lane to add capacity. This was amazing. Federal Highways has not created a class of projects at that level. And clean energy and connectivity projects for the roadsides mean solar arrays, EV charging stations, pollinator habitats, driving and charging at the same time. So wireless dynamic charging systems were included in the clean energy and connectivity projects, as well as transmission and fiber buried and co-located in the right-of-way. So Federal Highways in this memo essentially charted a layer cake opportunity for the right-of-way to be leveraged and yes, exploited at a higher level than it is today to unlock the power of that land, to host clean energy generation, to host clean energy transmission and distribution, to support pollinators with native perennial habitats, to bridge the digital divide with fiber supporting fixed wireless broadband, and to support electrified transportation to drive down transportation carbon, both wired EV charging stations and dynamic wireless charging systems in a lane. So this is the open door. This is the permission. This is the green light. States are actually encouraged to do these projects. It wasn't just green light permission, but it was because of the digital divide and because of climate change, we need to move quickly into these projects on the right of way. So with that open door, this is what a solar project looks like on the right of way. This is 2020 of February at exit 18 of the Ray Highway. This is a Southern Company and Georgia Power project, 2,600 solar panels, the first pollinator-friendly roadside solar in the country on the Ray Highway. Grid connected, transmission runs just on the other side of the interchange. This is a commercial project, so the electrons from this site are being sold to Georgia Power customers. This is in the ground today in Georgia. We're the third state following Oregon and Massachusetts to do these projects on the interstate system. Guess who's the fourth state? Maine. Right here. And I'm going to brag on y'all. RFP 2020, 3 sites, 2 on 95 and 1 at the airport. Exit 109 is going to host over 2 megawatts, about 2.25 megawatts of AC, leveraging 3 areas of that interchange. Awesome. Exit 112, 1.25 megawatts. In total, including the Augusta State Airport site, almost 10 megawatts of solar energy in your first step, your first foray into right-of-way solar. And I get it. I've been here for days. The roadsides are forested. You do a great job of vegetation management. We are obsessed with golf courses in the Southeast. We mow every 6 hours. I mean, every 6 weeks. It's turf grass. The aesthetic is not good. But you guys are doing it and gals are doing it right. You've got native roadside vegetation. You're allowing it to grow tall. It's producing ecosystem services. You also have forested right-of-way. There's not going to be as much right-of-way that presents itself readily for right-of-way solar. And yet you found sites and you're moving forward like this month, groundbreaking. It's awesome. I wish I could be here for hours and just brag on y'all. I'm so proud, but what I'm most proud of is that you set the bar for the country. You went above and beyond us. Like y'all, we're in your dust. We're eating dust at the Ray. Maine was able to negotiate a power purchase agreement, driving down your energy costs for the next 20 years as a DOT. You were able to negotiate a land fee from land that was underutilized. That was an obligation on your books. You're now allowing that land to be leveraged for clean energy generation that's going to produce a land fee. Revenue. That's what we lack. We lack a diversified revenue stream for transportation that is secure, that we have confidence in. What big organization doesn't have a diversified revenue stream? These are not silver bullets. This is just moving the needle. This is what we call buckshot in the South. This is the buckshot approach, not the silver bullet approach. So you guys reduced your roadside maintenance obligations through this PPA. You reduced your energy costs by smartly negotiating a PPA, a power purchase agreement. Then you generated new revenue with the land fee. On top of that, you guys kept the renewable energy credits. Boom. You're going to retire those credits. You're going to apply them against the statewide greenhouse gas goals. Awesome. And then you require them to be pollinator friendly. Uh-oh. I've missed a couple of my slides, but I had a slide about with beautiful pollinator friendly habitat. There it is. Awesome. Thank you, Erin. Erin's got my back. And that's why, right? Turf grass we do in the southeast on the left, 4-inch root systems, not resilient, especially not with weather extremes like intense flooding and the kind of extreme heat that we get in the south that y'all have had a taste of in the last couple of days. You know, what we want to see is land utilization that allows for the soils to be improved, that allows for the soils to be rehabilitated, because Commissioner Sheehan, I think one day y'all might want to look at all those soils and try to account for carbon sequestered in the soils. That may be one tool in the toolbox for DOTs to show progress towards carbon goals, is to look at the soils for the first time. That's way out of the box, but I'm just making a suggestion. Plants can help rehabilitate soils. Healthy soils sequester carbon. It's very simple. I just wanted to highlight what's next for Maine. You know, we can help. We're a nonprofit, we're here to help. We can help Maine to evaluate its statewide right-of-way data sets. Our strategic partners are Esri. They are the science of where. They gifted the Ray with an ArcGIS Pro mapping tool. Takes into account local solar radiation, also local solar economics on the grid. So we can take solar radiation and we can turn that into economic benefit, which is what Ray Anderson did. How do we express this in a value that makes sense and that moves the transportation leaders and the state's leaders? So solar economics and solar radiation, all local, takes into account surface modeling, i.e. tree cover, and takes into account elevation, because who wants to build a solar panel on a steep cliff? Nobody does. And this is kind of what that looks like quickly. This is Iowa DOT's roadside data set. So we use your data, your information. That's the solar radiation in bright green. You can see in the middle of the screen, we're removing the tree cover to show you the impact that trees have on solar radiation. So we can imagine the impacts to solar radiation if you are going to clear trees for any reason. So the tool is adaptable in that way. And then of course, the most suitable parcels end up being in bright green. And then we can also look ahead to community impacts. If you have a scenic view shed, if we were to build the solar array too high up the hill, it might disturb your view shed, right? So in Iowa, let's see if my pointer works. This is a turnaround over a slope that is meant to add value to the community and add value to the users of the system to have that scenic view shed. So we can actually tailor the nature of the solar array in order to protect the view shed. I'll give you just a couple of quick statistics from what we found so far. So North Carolina DOT's statewide right-of-way analyzed for most suitable for solar development, 50,000 acres in North Carolina. Annual value of solar, are you ready? 1.4 billion. Whoa. 1.4 billion per year is the value of solar built on the right-of-way in the most suitable places in North Carolina. Colorado, not that different. 20,000 acres in Colorado. About $1.1 billion. It's based on the local economics on the grid for solar. This is not small money. It's not a silver bullet, but it's not small money. You know, these are the entire year budget for some DOTs. It's definitely worth looking at. I just wanted to show this quickly, and I'm only going to take a couple more minutes. I'm already over, I know. But this is our cute little solar powered EV charging station, 175 kW at the rest area. Fastest charge you can get on the interstate today, but with NEVI, that will change. On the other side of the screen is our partners at GridServe. So 10 megawatts ground mounted solar, a few hundred kW of peak solar from the canopies, 6 megawatt hours of battery storage, 32 ports up to 350 kW. You know the Virginia Slims ad, you've come a long way, baby. This is 5 years, 2015, 2021, so 6 years. We're moving fast. Now I understand EV charging is going to be different in Maine than it is in Georgia. Greg and I were talking about this yesterday. One size fits all for states is not strategic, and it's not an appropriate use of resources. So, you know, when does Maine need to move into 32 ports charging at 350 kW? Maybe that's not really in this decade, but it's nice to know where the transportation technology is taking you. And it's nice to know that when you build solar on the roadsides, you can use it to power EV charging. Not only is that feasible, but that is being done at scale. I'm just going to finish with right-of-way transmission. I would love to talk about rubber modified asphalt at another time, but let me number one, say kudos to Maine and also to New Hampshire. Both states have state laws that identify energy corridors for the roadsides. Actually have done a little bit of research into your law here. It was passed in 2010. It's LD 1786, and it identified the entirety of I-95 plus 2 state highways as appropriate energy corridors for building out pipelines and energy infrastructure in the right of way. Now, in Maine, you guys are able and gals are able to extract a lease payment or a lease fee. So that's your why. Your why is more funding leveraged from a leveraging of the right of way. But the bigger why could be transportation electrification, as the commissioner and I were talking about over dinner last night. There is no way that the current grid is energized enough sufficiently to power electrified transportation across classes. We really run into the wall when it gets to heavy duty vehicles. When we start electrifying HD, forget about it. I was trying to be New Yorker. I don't know if y'all got that. So what's cool about this map, now you're wondering what's going on with the Northeast. I'll get to that in a minute. But what's cool about this map is that the National Renewable Energy Lab developed a national grid, a macro grid, by working at the seams of the 5 regional grids. So we have 5 balkanized regional energy grids, and NREL stitched the seams to create a national grid. The national grid is going to drive down energy prices. It's going to make us more resilient. We can get power to New Orleans during a hurricane, after a hurricane. We can get power to Texas in February during a bomb cyclone. We can get power to Oregon during massive wildfires, right? Those are all real catastrophes over the last couple of years that have taken down these states for weeks on weeks. No power. So a national grid enables us to help our neighbors neighbor. And it also enables us to move resources from where they're generated to where they're used. And where we generate natural resources like wind and solar is not where we use them. So we have to get energy from wind farms in the Midwest, from wind farms off the coast of Maine. We have to get that energy from where it is being generated to where it is being used. The GOP in Louisiana plan to build out offshore wind in the Gulf Coast in the next 12 months. Dominion Energy in Virginia just got sweeping permission from their regulators to go offshore with their wind off of Virginia. And right here at UMaine, y'all are developing floating, relatively unanchored offshore wind turbines for deploying far off of Maine's coast. Where does the power go? The power goes to where it's used. And that means that we have to build transmission and distribution to get that power from where it is being produced to where it is being used. And that is where a macro grid comes into play. And that is also where transmission and distribution built up the congested New England corridor. That's why you don't see transmission demonstrated on this map by NREL, is because of the concentration of communities, the concentration of population, and the congestion of land in the New England corridor. But we can use your rights of way to provide the transmission and distribution that we are going to need as we build up offshore wind, and that we are going to need as we electrify everything. Because we're not only electrifying transportation, remember, we're also moving to prohibiting gas hookups in new build. Right? Large cities across the country are prohibiting gas hookups for residential and commercial because we're also electrifying the built environment. If we're really going to electrify everything, the demand increases, and we've got to have transmission and distribution that are going to feed the beast, right? We got to feed the beast. And where do the transmission lines go? They can be buried in the right of way. And I'll just make this my last slide, but you can see what that looks like. So on the left-hand side, Wisconsin DOT has similar legislation to New Hampshire and Maine. They've brought projects to the fore in their corridor. You're looking at I-90, I-94 in Wisconsin, the Badger Coulee transmission line. And then this line over in Europe is under construction now. Can anyone spot the crash barrier? It's right on the other side of the crash barrier. Maybe we don't put ours there, but we have so much right of way to choose from. We don't have to go right next to the crash barrier, but we do have to go. We do have to do this. Transmission and distribution is the first work. We skipped the first work. We built all of these renewable projects, and then we tried to interconnect them. And guess what? They don't interconnect because our grid isn't big enough. We're going to have to grow the grid as we grow our renewable energy projects. And how we grow the grid quickly is in the public's land in the right of way. You guys and gals have control of that. And as this slide shows, we're moving forward with, in the MISO region, with Minnesota DOT, Wisconsin DOT, and Michigan DOT to plan transmission for the right of way. Once again, our friends at Esri are creating the tool right now that will take into account underground soil, underground rock layers, that will take into account existing T&D, that will help us help you plan for transmission and distribution in the right of way. Why? Because it's a revenue source. That's why you care. But why? Because we need clean energy to power electrify everything. We, the universal we. And this is really the era of transportation working with other sectors. This is the era of transportation working with energy. This is the era of transportation working with different types of habitats on the roadside to support agriculture. That's what pollinator-friendly habitats do. They support ag. We're in an era of convergent infrastructure and sectors are converging. And we, the big we, have to work together in order to solve the big problems and in order to make these projects a reality. So with that, I'm gonna actually leave this slide up as I walk away. Reduction in carbon, stormwater management with gap grade aggregate mixes, and open graded friction course. What I want you to know about tires and why we care so much about tires is that electric vehicles wear tires faster. The first study was produced in March. Michelin found a 25% increase in tire wear associated with electric vehicles. You all think it's the weight of the batteries, but I know it's the instant torque. And now you know. Instant power to the wheels shreds the tires. And we also have been speccing low rolling resistance tires because we're so worried about range anxiety. Guess what? Low rolling resistance tires are not durable. So we have low rolling resistance tires being eaten up by instant torque. And the Michelin study is probably conservative. We're probably seeing more like 30, 35, maybe 40% increase in tire wear on electric vehicles. So that means that our tire waste stream is going to increase significantly. Right now, we produce 264 million tires per year. They don't break down for 80 to 100 years. I can't say any more than that, y'all. We're at 250 million tires wasted every year into landfills. They will not break down for your children's children. We're about to increase that by 25 to 40%. We have to find beneficial reuses for tires. And I hope that we can work together with everyone in the room to figure out how to increase the use of rubber modified asphalt for all of these reasons. Habib is now going to kill me. I'm going to leave the mic. It's so hard for me to do. I love being with you so much. Thank you for hearing about the Ray.